This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the January 12th, 2023 meeting of the Southampton Ad Hoc Senior Center Feasibility Committee. Welcome, everyone. We do have a quorum. And we'll call the meeting to order at 12:02. And Darcy has offered to do the minutes because Audrey is out of town and Rini is also away. So neither one of those folks will be present today. First, I just want to start off by saying my apologies again for the confusion with the Zoom links and the need to cancel our Senior Center Feasibility Committee meeting of December 29th. I want to thank Abacus for being willing to move forward with the discussion at that time, even though the members of the committee were not able to deliberate or make any decisions with the landowners based upon the questions Abacus had forwarded them prior to the 29th. I realized that it was not ideal without any input from our committee, but was intended to be respectful of the time commitment made by the three landowners. Andrew and I have asked Abacus to provide a report to the committee on those questions and discussions and share their thoughts, and to have the committee ask Abacus any questions they have at that time. So let me admit Ed again. So let's move first to the approval of the December 15th, 2022 minutes. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, Darcy, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Libby. Okay, all in favor, and we'll do a roll call vote, please, because we're being recorded. Ron?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Darcy?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Andrew?
Aye.
I didn't see you there, Andrew. I missed you almost. Thank you. Okay, so the minutes are passed. Okay, so we're going to start first with open time for public comment. We have some guests here. We have Nilda Coing, Tammy Waluna, Cindy Palmer. So I think Nilda was first in. So we'll start with Nilda if you have public comment.
Yes, I do. And you'll have to forgive me, but I thought it was important that I come to this meeting. And I want you to allow me a little bit of latitude in terms of the information that I want to share that's been passed on to me. And I'm at a point where I feel that you guys should know what's out there in the community that I'm getting because of my association with the town, with the COA. And I always feel that transparency is very important, and more so because we do have the responsibility of the monies that we spend on behalf of the taxpayers. I do have a cold, so if you can't hear me, I try to lower my volume at midpoint, but I've written it out so that I can, but if you want to interrupt me or ask me a question, some of this is hearsay. Some of it is information that most of it has come to me. I have seen some things, but Joan can tell you that even if I don't agree with everything that's going on with the senior center, I have stepped away because there are new people on board, and I respect the people that are in place now.
And Nilda, just for clarification, it's a public comment, so there won't be any discussion during.
Okay. All right. The first thing is that there were so many, I even had these questions, but I kind of tabled them because there were so many different scenarios being played out in the community in terms of these funds that we received notification, and the guidelines that have been made known to the community as to the requirements in order to have these funds available for the intention of the donor. And so one of the key questions was in this, even Robert Floyd's newsletter this week made mention that if the feasibility study and the plans were not completed by May 17th, then the funds would go to other, I was told initially it was to other nonprofit organizations outside of Southampton. Floyd's newsletter said that the Historical Society would have some of these funds allocated. So that's one of the questions that you need to, and this is your responsibility, how you're going to communicate, because you have a PR problem in terms of the varying degrees. And, it's like people put a spin on what they feel they understood or they want to put a spin on. So that's a very key issue, because I'm in support of you making this effort. I am not taking that away from the committee and the efforts being made from multiple layers of the town. However, it needs to be done with I'm trying to be cautious about that there aren't self-serving goals here. And I think that the town, as I view it, and I don't know if you have either heard me speak or seen some of my documents that I sent to the select board, I feel that we are in a pickle in terms of the financial status of our town. And that will play out in the next, 12 months. They're just different degrees of issues. And not necessarily all because of the town, but just circumstances, the economy, and so forth. So that's one of the key things I wanted to convey. I haven't read any of the minutes. So if you have been hiring people to do certain services, are those people being paid? Or are they on a contingency basis? Is the architect on a contingency basis? So that if this project doesn't come to completion, who's going to pay? Where are these funds going to come from? I think you should make public, either on the website, the documents that you've received, whether it's the letter of notification from the Parsons estate attorney, letting you know the guidelines of that, those possible funds. And that would be very helpful. The other thing is, I did not attend any of the meetings when you were interviewing architects. So I would like to know the exact scope of the work of the architect, the role, because I've worked with architects. And so I found it unusual that this particular firm seems to me, and this is my opinion, that is taking a role which I think should be the role of the committee. He's been hired to do a certain perform on the terms of whatever you sign a contract, and then you're in charge. The committee, you're their client. And I feel that at times, even the public meeting, I attended that meeting, and I was somewhat underwhelmed because I felt that I was going because I wanted some more substance, and it was very elementary. I mean, he was asking us some very, very preliminary questions. On that note, I received call that I didn't count the people. There was no verification that whether the people that were all there were Southampton residents. I have been told that, and I don't know everybody, but that they were not all Southampton residents. I don't know whether you need to, like in town meeting, you have to prove that you're a resident to vote on that. So that was something that it never occurred to me. So it was trying to beef up the crowd so that the appearance was that there was more interest from the community. It's a disappointment, but there again, it's what's out there and what people are, conveying or sharing. Let me see.
I just want to make sure, yeah, we give you 5 minutes for public comments. We've got about a minute left, okay?
I know. I'm almost at the end and I'm losing my voice anyway. The other thing, and I can't remember who it was that told me that it had to be a committee member because they said that the reason that they picked Abacus was because based on Andrew's strong recommendation of prior working relationship with him and with that firm. And that could have an appearance of a conflict of interest. In any case, the last part I think the select board, the meeting that you posted on the 29th, then you canceled, that took place, that I'm told there were 8 people there, of which some of them were board members, committee members, that could be viewed as violation of the open meeting law. So on that note, I will end. And I know you have some things on the agenda. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Nilda. Tammy, did you want to speak too during public comment?
Tammy Wilderness, 298 College Highway, president for the Southampton Historical Society. I am observing what's going on and have taken a very close interest because of how the money would be divided if it is not met. Because we are one of the 4 places that would receive fundings from RED, or Mr. Parsons.
Okay.
So thank you.
Great. And Cindy, the other member of the public, are you here to comment as well or just observe?
I'm actually only here to observe. I am a member of the Public Safety Building Committee, which is clearly aware of the sort of parallel process of the work you're doing and the Public Safety Building Committee is doing. And I'm only here in an observation basis. And that's all I'm here for today. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to have people here from the public. So everyone is always welcome. And our meetings are recorded and the minutes are posted. So I think a lot of the questions that may have been posed would have been answered in those situations as well. So, but we're going to move on. And again, thank you all for your public comments. And I'm going to move on to David for your updates. You're muted, David, just so.
Okay, you can listen to both me and my partner in the background at the same time. I'm going to do screen share. Can you allow?
I will enable that. Yeah. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
That's a big question about.
There you go, David. Thank you.
Okay. I think I need this over on this screen. Okay, so I'm going to start just and you I was getting copies of this. It was a good meeting with all 3 of the landowners, or in one case, it was a representative of the landowners. I mean, all 3 of them kind of said the same thing. Yeah, we're interested in talking with you. Let us know what you want to do. And Mitch Bulletin, representing 79 Clark, had really nothing to say other than tell us what you want to do. He had no information to provide. There are no constraints. Continued, and there's a little more detail on this, but rather than reading through this, 89 Clark, and I'm sorry, Ryan, I didn't.
I'm sorry, his last name is Gielaher. So I can send that to you. Yes.
Okay. And I might have it someplace, and I will add this. He said a bit more. He said, yes, that there's has been some contamination and this needs verification. And our engineers are looking at this, that the contamination noted is 10 feet underground. It's very unlikely that we would ever dig down that far. It would have minimal or no impact on the development of a building or its location. Again, this is to be verified because the report is pretty ambiguous. There's some perk information on the upper parts of the site that's been passed on to our engineers. He would like a 50-foot easement, and you'll see we show that on the plan because he would like to have access to the upper parts of the site. In Zero College Highway, James Labrie, he said it's sort of similar kind of thing. Tell us what you like. Tell us what I can do for you. And we've on all of these sites, we pushed the site development further, and we've had previous discussions about being on College Highway, not being College Highway. And in a moment, I'll show you where we've gone from there. There are preliminary plans showing subdivisions. He said, yeah, there's no immediate, I left out a bullet point on this, talking about 55 plus community that's a potential that hasn't moved forward on the back of the site. I think I missed that bullet point one, and we'll add that. So he's open to senior center use and public safety building use. So I thought it was a good meeting. No particular constraints emerged. So is that a good summary?
Yeah, I'd just like to know, because we weren't able to have a discussion on the 29th. So is there anybody from the committee that would be interested in commenting, or thoughts, concerns? And if you're raising your hand, just feel free to speak. You don't have to. No, I think everybody's good, David. Thank you.
Okay.
And
and maybe I'll come back to the schedule and do this schedule at the end that goes from essentially today to March 16th. So let me come back to that. Survey Monkey.
Can you make that bigger, though? Is there any way to zoom in on that for us, David?
Yep.
Thank you.
That's as big as that. And I know, and we run into this problem all the time. The reports we get, the printing is pretty small. So, and I don't think, definitely to speak to this, I don't think it's really painstaking to make it bigger. So we have little control over the format. Do you want, Devlin is more familiar with this. Do you want to, and he and I have talked a bit, do you want Devlin to walk people through this?
It's up. I know the committee was able to get a copy of it yesterday. So I guess a good summary per slide would be good. And it's a summary, we'll post the results on the Council on Aging website once we've reviewed this as well. So, but yeah, let's do if it's a quick review, I'm fine. I think a summary is good to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Devlin, is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yeah, we included all 12 questions, obviously, and the last two questions were kind of open-ended and got contact information, so those were out of the mix. But for the first 10, these are all really just basic summaries of the answers respondents had. And then we can also do more analysis on do some cross-checking between different questions based on demographics and all that to get a deeper analysis on the survey, which we can do easily, but it's not in this presentation.
Okay, go ahead, Devlin. Yep. Do you want to just speak to those two slides that you had up there first, just to, especially for the folks that are our guests today as well, just to kind of summarize it for them?
Yeah, so for question number 1 is essentially asking if the respondents use the current senior center and how many times a month they use it if they do, and overwhelmingly almost 70% of the respondents said they don't use the current senior center, and if they do, most of them use it less than 5 times a month. And then the second one is if they think the current one meets or sufficiently meets the needs of the the current seniors in town, and overwhelmingly was no. About 15% said yes. Next slide, David. And then question number 3 was open responses, and I'm not going to read through all of those, but it was just to gather what people currently enjoyed about the existing senior center. Question 4 was very split between answers on whether or not the hours are sufficient.
It's interesting that the hours, when the majority of the people don't use it. So it's interesting. I just found this interesting. Okay.
Next slide, David.
And it was great that people participated that don't use the centers.
David, next slide. So yeah, question number 5 was gauging what kinds of programs or activities would incentivize people to use a new senior center. And it was kind of split between overwhelmingly, it was a lot of class and lectures, exercise, as well as health, which can be kind of open to one, I guess, maybe. So,
those were the top 3, right?
Yeah, and then socializing was a close one, almost tied with health and wellness. And down at the bottom, a little bit of theater and outdoor. And then question 6 was kind of spaces, which kind of tags along with the program on the left, but dedicated fitness led all of the other categories, as well as a cafe and dining, which kind of socializing, as well as outdoor paths. So
I think we're losing you, Devlin, at the end. You kind of trail off. If you could just...
Sorry, yeah, I'll just hold up my mic to my mouth. Yeah. It was really just dedicated fitness, cafe, and outdoor walking paths were the important program or spaces to be. Next slide, Jim. And so question 7 was what days of the week people would like to use it, and weekday mornings were the top answer. Close second was weekday afternoons. A good amount of people chose weekends, about 35%, but this was also a question where you could choose more than one, so the percentages will be skewed. So someone could technically say if they want to go all days of the week, all mornings, all afternoons. So, and question number 8 was overwhelmingly everyone was very likely to support finding ways to fund a new senior center. Very few said they were unlikely or wouldn't. If you roll very likely and likely into ones, overwhelmingly, yes.
And this is interesting, compared to other towns. I mean, some of the previous slides, this is what we often see, a series of different uses, and all of them are kind of equal. Nothing stands out. This very likely is a total thumbs up for the idea and more support than we often see. Although we rarely see, very likely being like nobody. So encouraging.
And
so these are just the 2 demographic questions at the end of the survey. Most of the respondents were between 60 and 70. Tail end were.
So 60, again, you're trailing off again, Devlin.
Sorry about that. So the majority of the respondents were between 60 and 79, and then trailing were in the 80s and 50s. And then majority were female respondents.
Females, right. Okay. And again, then we'll post this up on the website so that the town can take a look at it. That's the important part. In addition to us collecting data, so.
I wish this would shame some of the males to speak up and be more involved, but they're probably not going to even look at this. So that's a wasted effort. I say this partially tongue in cheek, but it is something we see all the time, and it seems unfortunate. And maybe game rooms, maybe, that's a great thing to market to try and get more participation from men.
And the last 2 questions were open response comments, general comments on the whole process and study. And question 12 was just gathering emails if people wanted to be updated on the process and study until the end of it.
Yeah, is there a way for us to get that database so I can send this results directly to those people that gave us their email addresses?
Yeah, I can print that out as a PDF and send that along with all the email addresses. It should be, I actually think I can put it into an Excel sheet. Which would be easy.
Yeah, that would be easier. That way I can copy and, put it into the, send it out, or Joan can send it out so they know it's coming from the COA, whichever. Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and these last two were actually, I guess they are in the PDF. We're comparing question 7, question 8 with the age demographics. I know we also shared these with the committee. The percentages are a little off because, like I said, it's comparing a close-ended question with a check all apply question, so they don't necessarily add up. But it's hard to break it all down right here. There's a lot of numbers to look at. It will be posted online for people to view.
So any questions from the committee? And just because we have a lot of people on, maybe you can, well, no, I was going to say stop sharing, but you're going to have to go back and share again. Can you stop sharing for a minute and we'll see if there's any questions or input from anybody on the committee? Any surprises, Joan, from your perspective?
I'm a little anxious to read all the comments. I didn't get to read all the comments, but I know funding is the biggest thing. I mean, it's one thing to have this bequeathment and to fulfill a plan to get the bequeathment, but it's the extended. We know that the 2.5 will not build a center. So I think there's a valid concern about the funding. And I wanted to read more about the comments, but I think, in the next, hopefully we'll get through this stage and, then the second stage and hopefully it'll give the community a little more sense of, we're not going to lay it all onto the taxpayers. But anyway, I was very glad to see they would likely like a new senior. So I think, it's definitely, we're just under, we don't have enough for this, for the community that we have. This one room, one bathroom, 2,000 square feet is just not enough.
Yeah, and just reading through this, the comments and the statistics, it seemed to suggest to me that we're on the right track here. There's nothing there that suggested, oh my gosh, here's something really important we've left out. Here's something we put in, nobody's interested in that. And there may be other views on that. And obviously this can continue to evolve, and if it becomes a real project, we can fine tune it. But it seemed like more or less an affirmation of where we're at. I mean, Joan, would you say that that's, okay.
Definitely.
And the comments that stuck out with me that, we haven't really talked a lot about, and it's probably more the next phase, but the green construction, which is, we've had some discussion on, but that's again, really the next phase, not this phase. And then to make sure it's a heating and cooling area for seniors when, we lose electricity so those are kind of key things that I think are really important that we haven't talked about with this group, but I think going down the road are important aspects to include. So,
and those are interesting issues because we are doing a community center in Taunton, and this was out of the blue. It's going to be a resiliency center. Well, it might. And our client got a grant to study its use as a resiliency center. And then in Carlisle, there was another, it wasn't a resiliency center, but it was a healthcare backup. I forget exactly what it was, but there are grants available that may or may not make sense for you. And it may or may not, this is the kind of thing that we want to put in a report, not decisions, but there may be options available that would be beneficial. And if they bring money with them, that might be good. So again, more next phase, but to list, weave it into a report might be good. So let us know if you have thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. And Just also on the comment for fundraising, I just noticed in yesterday's paper, Worthington got federal grant for $2 million. So we're already all over looking into, grant opportunities too. So that, because the last thing we want to do is as much of it as we can fundraise and grant and support is certainly our goal. So,
I
okay.
read that article also. It wasn't,
Yeah.
There was a lot of monies.
And the money is real, but also the notion that the town is thinking ahead, that some combination of the town and this committee are looking into these things and looking out for the citizens. I mean, people seem to be reassured, obvious point, but reassured by the notion that other funding sources are being looked at. And we can find out, if I can get information on what our other clients are doing, I can pass that on. Should I go back to screen share? And
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is, you've seen this before. You've seen this before. I mean, after the last meeting, we updated the plan. This is a conceptual plan, and it's different on different sites, but some of the immediate questions we followed up on, and others can be fine-tuned on particular sites because things can take a lot of different forms. Okay, so this is Clark Street site, the wide 89 Clark Street. So what you're going to see are 3 plans based on the programming and the plans we've done that are specific to the site. And I'll give you some, and these I think are a work in progress. Looking forward to your comments. I have thoughts about this. So this is a wider site. So we've turned the building to parallel Clark Street. And this is not, often the biggest room you want to have face the street because it's the most interesting room because it glows at night. So we've put call it the great room along the street. Now, one of the challenges associated with that is you want the kitchen next to it. So, and that's not a great thing. So you have you have the, pardon the expression, the butt end of the building right next to the most ceremonial. So all of this, we can push and pull on this. So in this case, we have 3, we have 3 rooms that can have a real presence or on Clark Street, a front face. We've said, okay, we're going to have a back drive that comes in and for kitchen deliveries right off of Clark Street. Then you drive in, you can keep going straight. There are 93 parking spaces, which is neither right nor wrong. Could have more, could have less. They're behind the building. You can take a turn. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to do drop off, you turn here. Handicap parking spaces, drop off. That dotted line is under some sort of cover. You can turn around and go back, or you can park in the parking spaces. You walk in the door. Here's the administration wing. Great room is right here. A kitchen and function rooms here. Here's the game room. Off of that, there's a terrace here. Here are other function rooms. And then you can go out to a back terrace. And what we're not showing, but you can do here is this back terrace could go further out. You could have an exercise loop. There's a lot of green space here that you could take advantage of. This is why we push the parking spaces over to one side. So there's a green space that keeps going as far back as you own the land. So it seems like we have a front face and we have a back face, both of which could do really good things. On the right, we have a 50-foot easement. The building can get pushed and pulled, but it can be stretched. But that's the idea. Same idea as the conceptual plan, but reorganized for this site.
I have two comments.
Yep.
You're going to remember the slider doors at the entrance. It looks like they open.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think for deliveries for the kitchen, you'd need the driveway to continuous for deliveries, unless you think that's the delivery place that other space going to the kitchen?
Well, this is the thought. This is deliveries. And I'm not going to say it's the necessarily the best or the ideal. There are a series of trade-offs. Yeah, and we should get rid of those swinging doors. We shouldn't show those again. Thank you for that reminder.
David?
Yep.
Is it David speaking in the background? Because it's really distracting. It's very hard to hear you.
But he has to unmute so we can hear his voice.
Well, yeah, I don't know where he went to. I don't have him here.
He's been quiet. Okay.
Thank you.
And then, okay, so those are good comments. And here, this is 79, Clark. We've turned things the other way. I mean, we could, in fact, make the building a bit wider, but, this just asks the question, suppose we narrow it up and we put the parking behind it. So you come in, there's a drop off right here. Here's the entry to the building. There's handicap parking spaces here. There could be more here. You keep in driving, and the parking is right behind. In the other scheme, the parking went further back. Here we're keeping it tighter to the building. There's an entry from the parking, and then a terrace that goes out here. And again, there's green space going back. And in this case, we have the great room facing the street, but the drive, there isn't a separate drive. You come in the main drive and you pull in here. Here's kitchen and deliveries. And our assumption is this is all screened. You're not looking at a dumpster. You're not going to have big trucks parked here all the time. So it could be right on 79 Clark, and it's not going to look like, a truck loading dock. But I do have that concern about, whether that's a problem or not. And then entry here, entry back here, social spaces in the same programmatic elements.
And what about commercial?
And then, okay, this is Zero College, and I'm going to start here. There's nothing about this layout that's cast in stone. This is what we heard from Mr. Labrie. But we were asking ourselves the question is, suppose we said
25 apartments.
The town wants to buy this lot, and it's expensive, and we know it's a lot that then can't be developed for commercial. How small could we make this building, and how narrow could we make the frontage and still have it work? And what we said is, if there is a drive here, the drive would need to continue. So we could grab, let's just say that Mr. Labrie does want to develop it like this. Let's grab this space and see what we could do with it. And that's what this is. Well, we have fewer parking spaces. Here we have 79. Here we have 93. We could keep going with the parking. In this case, we've maxed out the site. And what we've said is, let's get as much parking in as we can. Let's keep the building as tight as we can. And there's got to be some green space, but let's really keep that focused. So we have an L-shaped building. There's an entry. There's a drop-off. There's access to the kitchen. In this case, we might want to flip-flop this around. We probably should have a scheme with kitchen access from the back rather than the front. But again, a kind of work in progress. As with the others, you come in, here's administration. We have the function rooms, the great room facing Zero College Highway, and our social space has been quite differently. So there's circulation space. All circulation space, we assume, is also social space. You could line it with places to sit, but here's the main social space here, and then it opens onto a green, and there's a fireplace, and there are lots of doors. And this is, let me just look at this. I should, I'm going the wrong way. 49,000 square feet. I can't read this, how many acres it is, but it's something like an acre and a quarter. There's no room for expansion. There's limited green space, lots of downsides, but you could do it. You could do a 2-story building, which would give you a little more green space and a little more parking. Not sure whether it's worth it by the time you put an elevator in and 2 stairs. Certainly, if you got serious about this site. And here's another thing. Let's just say that Mr. Labrie does develop it as planned, and there's a drive here and a drive here. I think there's been a lot of concern about about College Highway being the main entry and exit, which is why his plan shows all the exits, entries and exits off these back driveways. You could just drive in here and close off that drive. But we didn't want to focus on that because there's no guarantee that's going to get built. And the whole question about is a site appropriate? Is entry and exit off of Zero Highway acceptable? Another thing to note is this layout could be on any of these slots. It just seemed to make the most sense to tuck it into the side.
Can I ask a question, David?
Yep.
I just want to remember the background here. So this is the plan that was provided by Mr. Labrie, and that is the building in the back is the potential public safety cost.
Yeah.
But we haven't necessarily offered a specific lot to us. It's any one of them.
He said, tell us.
Okay. All right.
I mean, tell me. He said, tell me. He didn't say, I'm necessarily going to give it to you, but he said, and this is why I'm putting it out to you. If you said, David, thanks for doing this work in Devlin. Thank you, David and Devlin. But we don't think this is a good location. Move it over. This is a horrible idea. We can change this before we show it to him. This is all public record, but before there's a more substantive discussion.
Yeah, it seems like, David, the other end of the lots is much wider and there's not a building directly behind it. If we were going to do a commercial, of course, our concern always has been taking commercial property off the tax roll. So because we have so much limited commercial property. So but thank you for giving an example based on this.
Yeah.
And really, David needs to lower his voice back there.
But in order to get that,
he says the same thing about me.
Well,
just to be clear, there was. I mean, we put it here because we could grab that driveway. So I take that back when I said 49,500 square feet. This is probably 54,000 square feet because we've grabbed the driveway. None of these other sites could we grab that real estate. So at least with this layout.
Does the last one have a driveway you could grab if you're looking all the way down to the opposite commercial? Is that a driveway also?
yeah, it looks like it.
And there's a turnaround.
It enters onto the curve, so we wouldn't want to enter on that location to College Highway. But if we could grab that back driveway, that might be a different option.
Striping and plowing and repaving and everything.
Yeah, and some of this is depends on futures that nobody knows about, but certainly curve versus non-curve. There's concerns expressed about curves.
Understanding.
Is it signalized? If there's a senior center there, would the town or somebody be willing to put a stoplight there? That would be for cars. I'm not sure if you could do that. I guess for people exiting, you could put a stoplight there. For entry, not so much. So any other questions or comments on this? And I will send it off to you, and you can obviously follow up with questions and comments. Everything sort of up for grabs. And the town hall site, still looking at that and want to come to you with a more developed plan and can follow up with that. I mean, we are looking into that. Harder to make that work. And also, before we push that too far forward, that's the one we're most likely to hear troubling things from our engineers. We haven't heard them yet. That might suggest town hall site is not valid. So I want to check in back with them. But if it seems viable, we'll do similar plans to these for that site if it's still on the table.
Do you have another option for 0 College Highway 2, David, or did you just do this one for this time?
I did this because we wanted to get input for you.
Okay.
If you said, no way, we need more green space. If you said, no way, we need more parking, we want to respond to your issues. Mm-hmm. And so we're not just randomly moving it around, but we're solving what you see as problems.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Darcy. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and are we ruling out anything that is not directly on College Highway as far as putting something towards the far, like down by where the safety complex area is?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking about a different location, Darcy, because I don't think we're ruling out not being right on the road. I mean, I think if any of the two buildings should be closer to the road, the public safety probably should be, but that's just Janet speaking. And I would like to see something I think we personally don't have enough green space with this location. I'd rather have more green space and not worry about being right on the road as long as we can make sure people know where we are. That's just me. I don't know what else.
Yeah. And if you weren't going to be on the road, conceivably, it makes sense to go back 300 feet. And what's tough about this is so many of these, you're raising really good issues. They're contingent on things we have no control over, like whether public safety has any interest in this. We've been really reluctant on any of these sites to plan around public safety and what Jim Labrie might or might not want. If this committee said, David, we can't live with it squeezed so much, we need more parking spaces and we need more green space, then we can follow up on that. And if you said we really like being on 0 College, we could just grab more space. These property lines are just lines on paper right now. If you said, we can't be on 0 College. So we're happy to look at alternatives, but we'd like more input, and maybe now's the time to do it. The other thing is, if people think about this in 2 weeks, if you come back with input, we can follow up on that. I mean, we have time to respond. These don't take that much time to do. And as I've said before, that's because Devlin does them. But it's been pretty quick and easy.
Because I know we've said between 2 to 3 acres has been kind of our minimum, right? Ed, are you waving to me, or you have?
Yes, I'm waving to you as chair or co-chair. I'm just going to throw this out for the committee's consideration and input. And let's just say that the parcel on 0 College Highway that is currently outlined in red is parcel number 1. Let's say we go down to parcel number 4. The cul-de-sac was shortened up, so it actually falls between parcel 3 and 4. And then parcel 4 might be the start of the senior center project or parcel, but maybe the town would consider buying some of that residential property behind it to combine with it to make it a little bigger. Just a thought.
That's a good idea.
I think Darcy was that too, right, Darcy?
Yeah, I think that would to get some additional space and that we could propose to Jim. I would almost go all the way to the far lot line.
But if you're
Yeah, that's what I would do too.
yeah, but that's good. If you're saying that between the pre-app and the preliminary application, we actually need
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think even from the survey results, the green space seemed to be of interest to a lot of folks that responded, and I think that's important to keep
And
that.
depending on, if they're really serious about a 55 and over housing, depending on where they're thinking about putting that, I mean, in comparison to that lot, I have no idea. But I think that's a plus, for that site.
Mhm.
Because that 2 to 3 acres, to a point, that came from Abacus, and we thought it was worth exploring the question, do you really need 2 to 3 acres? Because that could come up as a public meeting. Land's expensive. They're not making any more of it. Hey, has this committee and this design team looked at 1.5 acres? And we hear these things coming up all the time. And we'd be able to say, yes, take a look at this. Or we could say preliminarily, we looked at this. There is great dissatisfaction on the part of the committee and the COA director. So we went from that site to that site.
Yeah, that'll be a good discussion at the public.
Yeah. So you want us to move forward on that, on testing it out over here?
Well, let's hear from Libby, or I know we're missing a couple folks today, but so we may.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's where you have it shown is too small. Seems like we're just packing ourselves into a small space based on a plan that isn't necessarily reality at this point in time. So if we can move to a bigger location, I think we should.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems like that's probably the better path forward, especially if we're looking at, seems like a good amount of the responses wanted some outdoor space too from that, based on that survey. So I think that's probably the best path forward.
Ron, did you have any thoughts or?
No, it looks good to me, Janet. Put it over there.
Okay. So I guess the question that I kind of have is that, I mean, at the end result, come March sometime before May, we would try to at least narrow it down to our top 2 locations. Does that make sense to everyone? I don't think, based on the deed, which is available, through from the Register of Deeds, that I lost my track of thought. Hold on. Based on, we just have to have a plan. It doesn't have to be a specific site, but it's good to eliminate the ones that are not going to work for us. So I'm just curious what the committee thinks would be to give the Abacus some of our focus. Do we want to eventually get to just the top 2 sites? And then when we have the public input session or more public feedback as well, once this is done, we can narrow it down even further with more public input.
Are you seeing the schedule?
We haven't seen, now we see it, yes.
Okay. I thought this would be useful in helping to answer that question.
I think the other open question, aside from that,
Yeah,
So for me, a lot of the comparison of the sites is going to come down to cost. And I know that has been discussed. I mean, I have opinions about all the sites so far, but to compare them, I think the RFQ did indicate that we would come up with 2 sites and cost them out. I think I'd have to go back and look, but can I also ask another question? Where do we stand with the current fire station? Is that wasn't part of this discussion?
It's still an option as far as I know. Okay. We haven't eliminated it as an option. I think they're trying to get more.
Because it wasn't in the presentation. I was just
right.
Okay.
I think this was more of a follow-up to the landowners at this point in the discussion that we had with them. But David, let me know I know you're trying to get more data from the civil engineers as to the viability of that property. Is that correct?
Yeah. And what I'm hearing, and there's nothing final about this, but I've let them know that cost is a critical issue. And if there's one site that's particularly troublesome or would be particularly costly, we'd like to get enough information to quantify that. And we're probably, and I think I said this in a previous memo, we're not going to get hard science. And it may be we're able to quantify it, that this site, the soil is so poor, the septic system will have to be 3 times the size. Even that is probably not going to be a deal breaker. If there had to be substantive hazardous material, contamination remediation, if there was a ton of ledge that you had to blast through, those might register. What I think is that, and again, this is not confirmed, that the cost of the land will be a more substantive factor than subsurface conditions. We're assuming buildings that are all about the same size, the buildings will be exactly the same cost. Its foundations, its footing, its excavation, its regrading, its septic system, its stormwater management. So again, to be determined, I can put in review costs, and that should be in this schedule. I'll put that in here.
Yeah, because I think part of your response was talking about cost estimators as well that you work with. So that needs to be, to some degree, a solid estimate of cost or what's realistic at this point.
Well, solid. We're not getting solid site development costs is reasonable, is unlikely because we don't have solid information. Our engineers would get all the information that's publicly available. If you want solid information, need to do perk tests, need to do subsoil investigations, need to do phase 1 preliminary site assessments. If those aren't done, and this has come up, and I don't hear anyone on the committee or Ed saying, yeah, let's do that, the prices are not going to be solid. They're going to make best guess based on the information we get from the engineer. And, in the building, I think we can get good, we will make some preliminary outline specifications and mechanical systems, and we can get building costs, which would probably be square footage, because we won't have fully developed anything as part of this project. So I understand your desire and concern. We'll push as far as we can, but that may be where we end up.
I agree with David. This is a conceptual study, and we're getting conceptual numbers that are as good as we can get until we do drilling or other final design. So,
and I do think with a straight face, we can get up at a town meeting and saying, this is our estimated cost to be confirmed when we do site development. So it's not as if we're going to leave you in the lurch and with, is this 5 million or 10 million? What we're not going to be able to say is 79 Clark is 7.9 and it's 8.2 for another site, the exception being Town Hall.
I have to agree with that also, that because we don't have two of the properties, we don't have what the sellers are willing to sell them for. So that could make a big difference in costs. And yeah, I agree at this point to spend the money on, site, perk tests, drilling, et cetera. It's a little early, I think, in the stage. If we can just keep, like you said, the conceptual plan and the estimate of an actual building, what it would cost, then at the next phase, we can go to the landowners and say, this is what we're looking to do. What are you willing to sell? And also at the same time, then do those testing to see which site would be the best.
Yeah, and I don't believe the will specify the requirement for final cost. they required a study, but not a final cost study. So they knew that it's going to cost more than what we're working with from what they've been able to provide to us to date, because some of it was laid out, went to the COA directly, and that's how we've been spending some of the money. We can't go beyond that dollar amount in order to get the money that they've listed out in the will. So,
and we've done a lot of feasibility studies. In some cases, like in air, the clients did an investigation. They did wetland mapping. They did a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and then but said, oh, well, we actually like another site better. So there's no right or wrong. Most of our clients at feasibility study don't want to invest the money. But a question for you is, if in our report, but also in a community meeting, someone's going to raise their hand and say, and my guess is, how much does this land cost? What's the comparative cost? What would the response be?
Well, I think that's in going to be in phase 2. I don't know if that's the appropriate response, but
and it's easier to do that if you haven't decided on a site, which is with the direction you're leaning, I think.
Right. I think we should leave all the sites open until we know what the cost to purchase is going to be.
Or to take down a building and excavate, as we would have to do at 210.
Right.
So, Ed, let me just ask you, if I could, based on your interpretations or your discussions with the lawyer, do we need to narrow it down to a certain top 2, or do you have a recommendation from that perspective?
I think it's beneficial if we can narrow it down to like a top 2 or 3 at the most, but I think 2 would be ideal.
So we haven't really discussed the other property in detail. We haven't made a decision as a committee whether to explore the other Clark Street property, the Coombs property next to Heritage. I know, David, you talked, can you speak? You talked back in mid-December, you talked a little bit about that property, but can you give us an update on any thoughts on that? I think you thought it was pretty small, but do we want to ask and vote for the select board to reach out to that particular landowner as we've done with the other ones? I mean, in case we need, or does the town want to, would the public safety want to, in case widening a piece of property would be valuable to support both buildings?
I looked at it very quickly and I didn't see anything that suggested to me that this was more advantageous than the other sites, but I'm an outsider looking in. I don't know what anybody else thinks. We're happy to look at it if it seems like there might be advantages, to have 5 sites rather than 4. Does it make things any easier? Is it better? Can we say, oh, that site's definitely better than 79 or 89 or anything else?
Do you remember the actual acreage on that? I'm trying to recall here. I may have it here somewhere. Hold on.
My comment is that this is the first phase. This is a feasibility study, and this study is going to bring us to the next stage. But right now, I think we should focus on what we have, because this could change again. There could be other properties, once we decide, yes, we're going to build a center. Yes, we're going to get the fundraising going. And yes, we finish this plan. It's going to be years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And other properties could come forward that are less expensive or more, more appropriate for a senior center. So I think to keep on adding properties at this stage, I think it's not really for this phase 1. I don't think it's really a great idea.
So again, they reached out to us. Typically, in order to engage another property owner, we would go through the same process that we went through with the other properties. If everybody says the property, and I'm going to bring it up real quick, just so I agree, Joan, some ideal property could come in and somebody could make a donation of land for the perfect property, right? So, and that could be after this feasibility study is over, but so this is, I think it's the 3R is 3.782 acres, but it is very narrow and long. So
the only thing that jumps out to me is they're closer to the spill. So, that would be more of an impact. And I can't quite read what that easement is there. It's a little small.
Like a drainage easement.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, so it drains from Heritage over to the other, an easement over, then on to Clark. Okay.
Ed, you can just speak. You don't have to raise your hand.
yeah, please. I can't see everybody when I'm sharing. So
It's okay. I'm trained to go through the chair. So I can't tell you at the Public Safety Building Committee meeting, they did talk a little bit about this property and their concern was the fact of the plume or contamination currently on it.
So if anybody on this committee wants to make a motion to not pursue this property at this time or to pursue this, we're open to a motion and a vote here. Don't be shy. It's a shy group.
Could you pull the map back up again, Janet?
Sure, absolutely. And Cindy, I don't know if you wanted to comment from a public safety perspective since we're speaking of you.
I thank Ed for his input, which was absolutely how I remembered it. The only positive that I recall in the discussion of the Public Safety Building Committee was the potential for the fact this might be of a slightly lower cost or some lower cost than some of the abutting properties, but that's an unknown. That's the only other part of the discussion that I recall.
Thank you for clarifying. I know our liaison's not here today, so appreciate that. Ed's our other liaison. You guys, do you want me to keep that up there or is there a motion or not? I can't make a motion, so. You want a motion to table it at this moment?
Yeah, I would say let's table it because I can't see anything on the map as far as the plume and how far it extends. I'd like to look at that other stuff.
Do we feel it's wide enough compared to the other properties we're looking at? I mean, I'm back here again, so.
My concern is that you'd have to design around this easement also.
Yeah.
Well, is access needed from above? If you actually needed to be able to dig down as opposed to having a pipe 10 feet underground, yeah, that could be it. That would be tough. Devlin, how wide is the narrowest? How wide are our other sites? What's 79 and 89 for comparison?
Sure. I mean, if you have to be back in Portland.
I lost you, Devlin. You there?
'89 towards the front is about 350 feet wide. And 79 is about 280.
And those are narrower than we'd like them to be. Options are foreclosed on this width.
Send that survey where it was talking.
And public safety wants even more frontage generally than a senior center. But that's their problem.
Was that a motion, Darcy, you made, or? You're muted too. Everybody's muted.
I don't know now with what David's saying, is it just too small of a property with the restraints from the easement? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it seems to me it's significantly more limitations than any of the other sites. To me, I don't see any reason why that would be more beneficial than any of the others. And plus that easement is scary.
So I would make a motion to not move forward.
And not have the select board reach out?
That would be, yes.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Ron.
You're
We're
welcome.
going to take a roll call vote. Libby? I couldn't hear you, sorry.
Aye.
Okay, so you're voting not to pursue. Ron?
Aye.
Darcy?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And Janet, aye. Okay. Since we never reached out to them and they reached out to us, how do we make them aware of this? Is there, Ed, is there anything that we should do as a result since they had expressed?
I'll ask Judy to draft a letter to them for you, and you and Andrew can, shall we say, review it and sign it. We'll send it off.
Okay. All right. Okay, that sounds good. Is there any other discussion on the aquifer and any of the properties that we're looking at? Do we not have any additional information at this point in time, David, with that?
Well, the Barnes, I was a little confused by the Barnes aquifer. I mean, they asked that question to our engineers. We don't have any additional information for engineers. We've been going back and forth with them. How many people does this accommodate? You know, we've sort of zeroed in on reasonable assumptions for that. So they're looking at septic systems. I think the aquifer is something they're going to look into. But how did the Barnes aquifer come up?
I think if I remember correctly, it was brought up just to make people aware that most of our land in town, especially in that area, lies over the aquifer. I don't know if there's any issues with that based on building a senior center compared to like a public safety complex. I don't know if there's issues of concern.
As I recall, Rini brought it to the forefront because it's been in the forefront with the select board.
Well, I'll ask our engineers. I mean, there's town water. I mean, so if there's a pump on site, maybe it's different. But I'll just make sure. I'll say that this is an issue that's come up. Tell us what it means and address it. It might be just a sentence in the report.
Ron may know the answer to this. I know East Hampton has, you can only cover so much area of the property if you're in the Barnes aquifer. I don't think Southampton has that. Is that correct?
One of the other the issues is it probably has to do with the site, the amount of land required to for septic system designs. When you're in a recharge area, you have to have 10,000 acres or 10,000 square feet, I should say, 10,000 square feet per bedroom. So for like a 4-bedroom house, you'd need 40,000 square feet. So that's maybe what the issue is. Besides that, I don't know of any other concerns.
Is this a recharge area? Is that considered a recharge?
It's all, most of Southampton is on a DEP map.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I can think of is that. I know the aquifer, Barnes Aquifer has a committee, and I know that they have to review stuff if you're building in Westfield, but I don't know what kind of oversight they have in Southampton.
Okay. Cindy, could you add something from the public safety research?
Actually, I'm not raising it from the public safety building research, just from my experience on a couple of other areas. One is that, as you recall, the town was acquired some land over the aquifer on the Upper Pomeroy Meadow Road area in this recent year. And one of the things we did was go to our water commissioners, and we have some pretty knowledgeable water commissioners, and they might, I'm just throwing this out as an idea for all of you, that you consider inviting one or all of them to come, maybe the supervisor or something, just to comment on this very concept of the aquifer and the protection of our water supply. That's just an idea. Secondly, I don't know that we still have that Barnes Aquifer Committee of multi-towns. Ed, you might be able to confirm that, but the last I heard, that was no longer an active committee. I think it was called BAPAC, that actually is no longer functioning.
You are absolutely correct, Cindy.
Right, that has been, and we could even, as we've been doing in between meetings, if David has some questions to talk to either the superintendent or the chair of the water commissioners to get clarification, because I know they're pretty busy, and to try to pull them into a meeting is not always the easiest. But since David could possibly, we could talk, David, maybe do a mini meeting or something. Okay.
I mean, this is why we have engineers on board. So I think our engineers are exploring these issues. Okay. They said they would reach out to the town as appropriate. I don't necessarily, we're architects. We don't necessarily speak the language. This is why we hire engineers to read between the lines. Okay. So my inclination is to let our engineers do that work and then put that into a form that can communicate with all of us in the public.
Okay.
That's my expectation.
All right.
And I can reinforce that with them, but this is exactly why we hired them.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds good. Makes sense. Can we see the timeline again, David? Do you mind? I kind of blew by that, and I know we need to a couple of those things that are on that timeline that we need to share with everybody that you and I have kind of talked about. So one of the things is the March 1st public meeting. So I did reach out to Norris School, to Mickey Carmichael, and she said that they have basketball every night, but they are closed the week of the 19th of February, which probably would have been the most ideal week to meet. So rather than trying to push things faster, we were looking at possibly a March 1st, March 2nd date to have the public meeting at Norris. And I just need to see if everybody on this group is in support of that, and that we can kind of make a motion, and I can reach out to Mickey to firm up one of those two dates.
My comment is that the first of any month is a difficult time to have a meeting, because I don't think people are in gear to have it publicized and get people there. I mean, the second is a Friday. I don't know if that makes a difference, but or is the second a Thursday?
The second is a Thursday.
I think you might be better off with the Thursday than the Wednesday, but that's just my suggestion is planning events.
I mean, it depends on how our advertisement doesn't start on the first of the month, right? So I know when you're planning, I don't know, David, have you seen any concerns about that?
I've never heard that brought up before, that the first of the month is disadvantageous. I'm not saying she's wrong. I just haven't heard that before.
I know when we're trying to have meetings, and the first of the month is kind of a crazy time for like our board meeting and stuff, which would be March 1st, of course, right, Joan? So, so I understand what you're saying about that. Anybody else have any feel? Thanks, Joan, though, for sharing that. That's good input. Anybody else have any concerns about either the first, which is a Wednesday, or the second, which is a Thursday?
I personally would prefer the first, but it doesn't matter, whatever the majority.
Anybody else have any concerns, or we want to make a motion to move forward with the date?
I'm not available either date, but.
You're not? Okay.
But.
When does the select board meet? That they meet on the following week?
I don't know. Ed? Do you have your February schedule? Are you meeting on the 28th?
If we follow the regular schedule, let's say 21st, 14th.
And is that?
Yeah, we would be meeting on the 28th
Okay.
of
So
February.
Is that good or bad, I guess is the question.
Well, I mean, it could be announced at the select board, so maybe that would be a plus.
So should we have let's have a motion to make it March 1st for a public meeting? Do I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, Darcy seconds. So let me go back to roll call. All in favor, Darcy,
Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Libby.
Aye.
Did I miss anybody? Janet, aye. Okay, so March 1st. Is that David? You're good with that then? Did I lose David?
He's nodding.
No.
Okay, you're
And
not.
by the way, my partner's name is David too. No, let's do
So March 1st. Okay.
What time do you anticipate?
I was thinking 6-ish, but I'm open to discussion on that. Do you have, in your experience, is there a better time than not?
In my experience?
Yes.
It's all over the place. The problem with 6 is sometimes people are hungry.
Yeah.
That sometimes 7 gives people a chance to eat something. Okay. The good thing about 6 sometimes is people are on their way home from work and they stop by. So I've heard lots of different kinds of logic. I guess I've heard we've done more 7 than 6, I think. But it's all over the place. We've done 4:30.
I just want to make sure we get people that work to come, the rest of the community. And if 6 o'clock is right at dinner time and 7 o'clock would be better, I want to make sure that, we reach out to the community that we want to participate,
And when we've done like 6 o'clock, and the sort of advertisement will say there will be snacks available.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know whether you're willing to do that or not willing to do that. Sometimes it like whets people's appetite, so to speak, for showing up at 6.
I think there's some challenges in a nut-free school and things like that with bringing in.
Yeah, I was figuring we probably could just call it with that.
So anybody else have any thoughts about that? Anybody feel 6 or 7? Anybody have any strong? Everybody's very quiet today.
Either one's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Because I think about the town meetings always start at 7 for probably that reason. So not to interfere. And David, how long would it run?
Yeah. If people are used to 7, I'd say 7. I know for the seniors, there's a good reason it was before dark. If people are used to 7, then I would say 7.
Yeah, I think that.
Everything else is
And
I don't think 7 will keep anybody from coming.
parameters to start.
so how long it takes is very much about what we want to accomplish. It's too far along in the process to say, we really want your input on which, well, not necessarily. I mean, are we asking for substantive input? If we're asking for substantive input on the program, we already did that. So I don't think we're doing that. Some of this is information to say, this is the work that the committee, the town, and the consultants have done. This is preliminary conclusions. No final decisions have been made. No money's been allocated. That's why we want your input, and we want to hear and just open the floor and say, maybe there are 2 issues. One or any concerns you have about anything you've heard, and another is, we have several sites on the table. We want your input on which sites are are most appropriate. So, and I would suggest that we do a bunch of talking about the work that we've done, but issues of land costs, where the money's coming from, it's probably better coming from, I don't know whether it's Ed, I don't know whether it's from the committee, but probably not us. If you feed us the information, we can certainly address that. At some point, we're going to be gone, and you're not going to be. So the dialogue might be with you. So maybe, and what I can do is put together a preliminary outline based on this discussion, but it may be that Joan leads off, we follow up, and then somebody who's not us talks about funding issues, and then we open up the floor.
Okay. Libby?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on one of the things David said. I'm not sure that we should be asking for input on which of the sites the public believes is appropriate, because I think that's our job, is to narrow it down to a couple sites, and we present those as the two options. I think we're supposed to be coming up with that. I mean, we can ask people's opinion, but I think it would belabor the issue and the issuance of the final report if we're asking the public to help us decide. I'm curious about what other people feel.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
And that was the input session. I think we should, maybe have some design, something that we can hand out that work with the design, that kind of thing.
The two sites. I just went and looked back at the RFP or the RFQ, and we did not say that there would be a specific number of sites that would come out of the report. So I think it's whatever we decide is appropriate, whether it's 2 sites or 3 sites or 1 site, if it clearly rises up to the top.
And did it say anything from a cost perspective, Libby, too? I was going to pull it up too.
No, it didn't. I mean, that's part of the decision, but I think it was more open-ended. It talked about all the things that needed to be included. And then I'm reading right now, it says, prepare a draft report outlining the results of the study for submission to the feasibility study. The report should be in sufficient detail to be used as a basis for progressing to the design of a future facility.
Okay.
And then, so that is, we didn't put a date on that, but we're supposed to, I lost that. Finalize the report and present the findings to the select board on or before March 16th.
Okay. And I do think that for the public meeting, I think one of the reasons that we were attracted to Abacus was your 3D displays. I mean, I think when we had the 2 finalists present, that those are the kind of things, the visuals that you shared with us as part of your what you bring to the table, those aspects of a public meeting. So it's more than a sheet of paper that they're seeing, but if they can see something that's really.
You use Revit. David, use Revit. I think I saw that in some correspondence.
Yeah. And we usually do that, but that is generally, we do, and you haven't seen it because we haven't done it yet. I mean, we did that partial 3D, that axonometric is they're site specific. So what we don't want to do is develop all this 3D stuff and then have that taken off the table. So we definitely have time to do that. We just don't want to do something that, and another way to look at this is these are sort of similar enough. We could just pick one site and do it as a representative example of how it could feel and look. So,
and you don't have to label the site necessarily either, right? So go ahead.
Unless it's unless it's the fire station, which might be a 2-story building. So maybe that might be one of them, and then one of the Clark Streets is another one.
Yeah. Maybe keep the discussion open. We have time to do that. I mean, what I'm figuring is if we're meeting January 26th, that's sort of a continuation of all the discussions we're having now. We're going to do some refinements on the plan. I mean, we know Zero College. We're going to look at another site there are some refinements, and I mean, the doors are a minor issue, but we'll pick up on that. If anybody had any comments, we can continue refining these, and maybe for the 26th, I'll talk with Devlin. Maybe we can start popping some of these into 3 dimensions. Let's see if we can push that agenda forward.
I think Andrew was trying to say something.
Yeah. Thank you. My question was more of, if we're going with 2 sites, I mean, I guess point A would be, I think it would be helpful to have 2 sites, considering there's a lot of overlap with sites being considered for the public safety complex, right? So if we're going with 2 sites, what is the amount of time that you would need to, and this question is for David, obviously, what is the amount of time that you'd need? I mean, you already have a base in Revit. What is the amount of time that you and Devlin would need to kind of be able to know which 2 sites we should focus on, be able to prepare some pretty robust graphics for that public meeting? I mean, if we, let's say, it seems like based on your timeline, you'll have a good amount of feedback from your engineers by February 9th, right? So if you're able to, and I don't necessarily want to drive the bus for your process, but I mean, if you were to be able to put together sort of a draft decision matrix by February 9th, and then we can sort of start to narrow between 2 sites with about a month left in our timeline, does that give you enough time to prepare some good graphics to be able to present at that public meeting? And then we can just sort of put the other sites to bed, so to speak.
David, you're muted again. David, sorry.
Between February 9th and March 1st, you're saying? Yeah. Devlin, do you have any concerns about that?
No, I think 3 weeks could be enough time.
And just, you might want to add to this schedule, David, as well, that we're going to have a joint meeting. For part of our meeting will also be with the Public Safety Committee on February 9th.
I'm sorry, with who?
With the Public Safety Building Committee.
Okay. So to the schedule, going to add March 9th.
No. February 9th. February 9th.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. February.
So hopefully it gives you some good time to really understand more about what they're thinking, so that, again, and this is a feasibility study based on the requirements from the estate, and it didn't specify that it had to be a land, it was a standalone senior center. It didn't say on a specific site for a specific time frame. So, I think understanding the public safety and where they're at by February 9th might be helpful with us moving forward before the public meeting too.
Because there are a number of things are political, and I mean political in the best sense of the word, in that we live in a democracy and this is going to be paid for by the taxpayers. So in a public meeting, for people to know that there's been communication with the committees is probably a very useful thing. But also asking people for their input on sites. It may be that the committee has been entrusted with the final decision, but it may be worth, again, this is very much up to you, but it may be worth asking that question, because there may be people who, everybody's been asked about the program. Everybody's had the chance to weigh in. If people say, it's on the opposite side of town from where I live, nobody asked me where I wanted it to go, those kinds of things come up. So I at least suggest you think about that, about asking that question as an advisory.
Okay, we should talk about it again. Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of that would be supported with data in the decision making matrix that you guys put together. I mean, that could become, I don't know how you've done it at other public meetings, but that seems like it could become a pretty significant focal point in those meetings, right?
Yeah. What we've tended to find is when we do crowdsource it. We have this picture in Lincoln where we looked at 5 sites and we had people vote with blue stickers. And there were like 6 stickers, 5 stickers, 8 stickers, 9 stickers, 123 stickers. If you make a convincing case, you can build consensus around it. So in the decision-making matrix, that's one way to build consensus. There are always curveballs, but so what we can do is send this whole.
Libby just put her hand up, so I'm sorry.
On this, I don't see when we will get the draft report. I see that we're reviewing it on the 23rd, but it seems like we should have a date in there when you will submit to us the draft report. So it's after February 9th, before the 23rd.
The meeting, so that we can review it before.
Right.
Wait, for draft, you're saying draft report?
Yeah, so we review it. You have the review, but when would we expect to receive it for us to see it before the meeting?
The review was, it should send draft report for review. So February 23rd, send draft report for review. But that's a good, you're asking a good question.
I don't want to review it just at that meeting.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Review it a couple days before.
Yeah. Let me plug something in.
Okay.
So we'll send this whole presentation, and I think probably what we're going to change is to the schedule. We're going to add February 9th with public safety. We're going to note about cost estimating, plug in here a decision-making matrix or pros and cons evaluation, and to send draft report for review. Those will be plugged into this before we resend essentially what you're looking at with those revisions. And anything else? Am I missing anything?
No, I think the only thing we have to decide is if we're going to kind of vote on the top 2 or stack rank the properties, that has to be in one of these meetings, but that's more our line item versus yours.
It also might depend on the cost too, where the cost of one of them might be outrageously high that we just take it off the table, and that's not one of the 2. So we need the report to really look at that, I think.
Yeah. But I know that we're not going to have the cost of the property. So
that's correct.
That's going to be a chunk of it. But
I again think without having the cost of the property, we really can't, it's hard to rule out one or the other unless something in the engineering is glaring, which there, in my opinion, there probably going to not be anything really glaring that I can see. So it's all going to come down to cost of the property.
Yeah, the only thing that could be glaring is 210 College Highway, depending on what is uncovered, if anything more is uncovered. So,
yeah. And again, question, can we quantify it? So we did pros and cons comparison 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. It's probably not going to be much different, but we can add some detail to it. And we'll see what kind of information we get.
And I don't know how people feel. Should we discuss at the public meeting pros and cons, or is that hopefully we've made those decisions before we get to the public meeting? But to share maybe some of those, or just be ready to discuss them anyway.
I feel in the public meeting, maybe, talk about these are the properties we're looking at, the things, these are the things that are going to help with our final decision, cost, engineering studies, those at this point haven't been done. So people know that we're thinking of those things, but we don't know the answers to them at this point in the study.
Okay.
Or due diligence has been done on all of those. We have looked at costs, we have looked at engineering, but not in the detail that allows us to really give hard numbers on it.
Okay.
So people should know that it's not like we haven't asked those questions.
Okay. Any other comments then on the schedule? Thanks, David. You can unshare if you want for that. And I'm just, so the civil engineers have started moving forward with some outreach, right?
Well, outreach, they're doing their work. I mean, a lot of the outreach is on Mass GIS and databases, but part of their work is talking to the town as appropriate. So I don't know what they've done or haven't done on that. My guess is they haven't done that. They're going to get all the information they can and see if there's anything else they need.
Okay. I think we're kind of down to, and if anybody disagrees, anything else that can't wait till the next meeting? Is there anything else that anybody here wants to discuss between now and what was that date? The 26th? Is that what you had? I have one thing, and I did get an email from Christine Wright. I just want to bring it up to you folks because, there was an article in the paper. We talked about these 3 properties that we were looking at, and she asked what happened to her property. And I did explain to her that trying to get entrance to the park based on the deed of Conant Park, we really couldn't build a street through there to a separate building that wasn't part of the park. And that was why, although nothing's been finalized, why it's really hasn't landed in the top 3 or 4 spots at this point. Ed, should we do anything more formal than that? I mean, I said the report's not completed yet. I copied you on my emails. One of the probably 50 that you get from me a week. So,
you mean 50 a day?
Be kind.
I would probably say that a formalized letter at some point would be the correct response.
Okay. That's what I mean, because we really haven't wrapped it up yet. So, but we're not ready to do that at this point in time. It's been sort of the properties not really being considered anymore for that reason. Should we do a formalized report or wait our letter, or should we wait until the report is finalized? More of a timing thing, I guess.
I think we could do it anytime on that one because it has been ruled out, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, if the committee has voted to rule it out, then I'd say it can be done now or anytime in the future.
So I don't know if we had an official vote or not. I'm trying to peel back my memory, and I don't remember if we had an official vote. So can we make a motion to, based on the feedback from the deed? I mean, I don't think we have any options other than to unfortunately rule it out because the location is quite perfect. But I don't recall that we made a motion and voted on it, Ed. So I'd rather do it again to be on a safe side. So based on the feedback from the deed for Conant Park and the donation requirements that the property brought forth by the Wright family is not going to be considered for in the feasibility study for the senior center. Do we have a second to that motion?
I second
that motion, Janet.
Oh.
Sorry, Darcy.
No, go ahead.
And Libby, the 3 of you were tied.
We all did it.
All right. All in favor, Ron.
Aye.
Darcy.
Aye.
Libby, are you still there?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Andrew?
Aye.
Janet, aye. Okay, thank you. So now it's kind of official. Ed, should something come from the town then? Since the original letters went out from the select board? Or how should we handle that?
Well, that one came to the committee, correct?
We did, but then I think we reached out to the select board to have them send a letter to them.
Okay, I will research that.
I'll double check on that, yeah.
Either way, I'll have Judy draft a response and then we'll put it on the appropriate letterhead and have the appropriate committee representative sign it.
Okay. And
But if you could send me a copy, just so we're consistent between the report and the letter.
Okay. And the other thing is the RFQ posted on our town site somewhere for people to review as It could answer some of the questions that may have come up earlier today.
No, RFQs bids are not posted on the town website because as you go through, you can get entities to take them and are going to act on them, and you don't have a record of that, so you cannot send out addendas and what have you.
All right, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. All right. Anything else? I can't wait till the next meeting. I'm just checking my calendar to check David's date. So the 26th at noon, is that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything else. Is there anything else that, David? Yep.
I just, an issue came up. Andrew and I have never met each other. I didn't know Andrew. Andrew didn't know me. Totally appreciate him being on this committee, but unless we bumped into each other somewhere that I don't remember, there's been no connection ever other than we're both architects.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was maybe a little bit confused with one of the other finalists here at my full-time job. We have a working relationship with, but it was not Abacus.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that as well. All right. I guess we can have a motion to adjourn. You guys don't want to go?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Darcy, second. So we're adjourning at 1:47. So thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.